How's everyone doing? My name is Andrew, and I have a confession to make. I am a great, big, tremendous X-Men fan. There. Now you guys know. I have been reading comics for basically my entire life, since I was able to read. And probably even a little before that, to be honest. I would just look at them and always loved the X-Men, always been drawn to them. So, as I'm recording this right now, I have just finished Marvel's big X-Men event of 2019, a little bit of 2018, The Age of X-Men. And I thought it would be interesting to review it in its entirety. So over on Twitter, I go by the handle of Pool Comics, and I like to do, mini Twitter reviews, limited to 140 characters each new comic book day. But I thought, given that this was a bigger event and X-Men related, that kind of deserved its own thing. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the whole event. We're going to talk about what I thought of it and uh, the X-Men in general. So I think it's I think it's kind of important to point out that as I finished, or I guess as I was reading through this, so it went on for basically the first half of 2019. Um, it became clear that Matthew Rosenberg's Uncanny X-Men that was running parallel to it was very much a companion piece. And I think the final issue of his run on Uncanny X-Men really just solidifies it. So I've kind of expanded my scope, and I'm going to be talking about every issue of Age of X-Men, all the tie-ins, and in addition, um, all 22 issues of Uncanny X-Men, because the first 10 really led into Age of X-Men, and then the rest of that run really ran parallel and wrapped up Age of X-Men. So we're going to be talking about it all. We're going to be talking about a lot of X-Men, so you kind of know what you're in store for. So before we dive just right into reviewing, all 50, because I did count them, and it's 50 individual issues of this event. I think it's important to kind of start at the beginning. Um, Not all the way at the beginning. We're not talking all the way back to the Stan Lee days where the X-Men first came about. Um, I'm kind of talking the beginnings of this event, um, what the state of the X-Men were like at the time, and kind of all the factors, the external factors that led into just how people were feeling when this event kicked off. Um, if you go back even just to 2018, at that point, as an X-Men fan, we had already kind of experienced what I would call a relaunching of the line. X-Men was coming back, and it was coming back in two teams. So it was coming back Gold, X-Men Gold, and X-Men Blue. Understand why I got excited. That was really cool to me. Kind of harking back to the '90s X-Men series that I loved so much. Um, and it was exciting. So what we ended up getting was, I'm not going to say terrible, but it wasn't great. I Eventually we ended up with three color theme series. We had X-Men Gold, which was kind of your more traditional X-Men team. You had X-Men Blue, that was the time displaced junior deputy X-Men, thanks Bendis. And then you had X-Men Red that came on a little bit later, written by Tom Taylor, which was really the newly resurrected Jean Grey's platform to kind of return to the Marvel Universe. And to say that any of them were great would be basically just a lie. I don't know that I have ever met a person who said they really enjoyed X-Men Gold. Um, I personally, out of the three, enjoyed X-Men Blue. Although I've never had a comic that's had me so close to dropping, and then the next week I just absolutely love the issue. So X-Men Blue was horribly inconsistent in my opinion. And then X-Men Red, there are some people who say that they loved it and it was the best and canceled prematurely, but uh, I don't know. I just didn't click with me, and Jean Grey didn't feel like Jean Grey in that series, at least the way I remembered her. And in my opinion, she almost came off as a villain in some ways. Um, or at least had several kind of like villainous tendencies, in my opinion. So it was just odd. It was just an odd time to be an X-Men fan. And so, um, as the rumor mill is swirling and you start seeing that a Fox deal looks more and more promising and more hopeful, um, all these things kind of line up. And then the big rumor that was going around was Uncanny X-Men was going to emerge somehow, some way, some form. It was going to take all of these threads, all these, the gold, the blue, the red, which at this point were all announced to have been canceled, or they had cancellation dates. So we knew those were coming to an end. And the idea was, the rumor was that Uncanny X-Men was going to rise from their ashes with one unified X-Men story and really carry us into the future. And that was really cool. That was exciting. And I remember in July, so this is July 2018, waiting to read the transcripts as they were posted live from Marvel's X-Men San Diego Comic-Con panel. Um, just being really excited. Because at this point, it was kind of the worst kept secret. And the biggest question I had was who was going to be at the helm? Like, who was going to be writing Uncanny X-Men? Who is going to be taking care of my most favorite comic book series, my most favorite collection of comic book characters. Um, and so with all of this hype, what we ended up getting was just a small teaser at the end, confirmation that yes, Uncanny X-Men's coming back. It would be coming back in November, and stay tuned. Tune in next time to find out who's going to be writing it. Collective sigh. So it wasn't great, right? Because it was kind of like we already knew that Uncanny X-Men was set to come back. I mean, yes, we got a kind of a hard date, a hard month when we would get it, but in my head, the I'd been burned once too many times before, and the name itself, while exciting, is almost nothing without knowing who is going to be at the helm. So I think what really made that teaser, like teaser announcement, teaser trailer at the end of the panel, really really worried me is that they didn't announce the writer. Um, and at this point, there were a couple. I can think of two really big rumors that were going around on who people were speculating, who I was speculating might come back or pick up the reins and write Uncanny X-Men. Um, for a long time, there had been rumors and spottings and whispers of Jonathan Hickman returning. Um, Now, Hickman had taken a step back, hadn't really written anything for Marvel in several years. But what fueled this rumor was he was spotted at the Marvel Writers Retreat. So um, you don't bring Hickman back, a writer of his caliber who has done Infinity, he's written Avengers, he's done Secret Wars. So you kind of don't bring that guy back unless you're going to put him on a big title. And so obviously the two big titles that people thought he might come back for were Fantastic Four or X-Men, in this case, Uncanny X-Men. And he had kind of already got his fill or already told his piece about Fantastic Four, so X-Men seemed like a logical choice. Um, the other one that kind of had me interested was there was a lot of rumor about Chris Claremont potentially picking back up and writing an X-Men story for kind of the modern age, coming back to the characters that, in my opinion, had made him famous. Now, if you weren't going to get Hickman and you weren't going to get Claremont, um, the question in the back of my head was, well, who do you get to write this book? Because it should be a big deal. Um, and so I kind of looked at the landscape of X-Men writers at the time, people Marvel had currently working, um, and specifically currently working on X books to try and get an idea of who they might put on it if they didn't bring in like an outsider, a big name. Um, and of course, you had Rosenberg on Dead Souls, Matthew Rosenberg. Charles Soule was still working on Wolverine, Wolverine Returns at the time. Um, and you had Tom Taylor. You had, I mean, the interesting thing is you really had the sense that it wasn't going to be anyone who was on gold, blue, or red because, right, those had kind of had their chance and they were canceled. So you kind of assumed it wouldn't be any of those guys. So we'll take Tom Taylor out of the equation. Um, the only person who really, and I guess you had Ed Brisson. Ed Brisson was doing, uh, he'd either started or he was announced or he was going to do Extermination, um, which was kind of the closing or the culmination of the gold, blue, red storyline. And it was also, I don't know if it had started when Uncanny was teased, but like it was well known that Ed Brisson was going to be writing it, even if it hadn't started. So he was certainly a choice. And then you had Kelly Thompson, who was on her Rogue and Gambit mini story, her mini series. So out of out of all of those names that I mentioned, the only one that I had any kind of faith in, um, to take over and write Uncanny X-Men would have been, at the time, it would have been Kelly Thompson because she, not only did I really enjoy her Rogue and Gambit stuff, but um, she seemed to have a kind of a fondness and a passion for the X-Men and kind of an understanding of what made them such great characters to read. Um, in a sense that she didn't only focus on the she kind of focused on the complete package, I would say. She dealt with like bigotry towards them, but also had them go on fun space adventures. Um, and you could tell she was just having fun when she was writing her Rogue and Gambit series, and that kind of approach is what I was really looking for, um, or what I was hoping that she could kind of ramp up even further and bring to the table if they asked her to write Uncanny X-Men. So all this speculation and rumors and nervousness and waiting, it all culminates. It all brings us to August. So just 1 month later, August 2018, we get the big reveal. We get the big reveal on what Uncanny X-Men is going to look like in its new form. Um, we get a teaser image titled "Disassembled," um, promising to throw the current X-Men lineup, the world as we know it, into chaos, into uncertainty. Um, and doing so over the course of 10 issues. Um, what was interesting was it was going to be 10 issues and it was coming out on a weekly basis. So for 10 straight weeks, you were going to have an Uncanny X-Men book hitting the shelves telling this disassembled story. Um, and what immediately, well, and I guess and also I guess I should point out the idea was, or like the concept was, it was going to tell this 10 issue story, disassembled. It was going to break apart the X-Men universe as we know it, and lead into what was being marketed as a X-Men event, like the kind that we hadn't seen since the Age of Apocalypse. And even the name invokes that event, or that time period in X Men history where Disassembled was going to lead into the Age of X Men. And it was going to be really the an all encompassing, universe shattering, game changing, line filling event that was going to be a must read for X Men fans. So remember all those writers that we had been speculating might take over Uncanny X-Men? Well, we didn't get Hickman. We didn't get Claremont. We did get Thompson, but we also got Rosenberg and Brisson. That's right. Uncanny X-Men was returning. It was going to come out once a week for 10 straight weeks, setting up the biggest X-Men event since Age of Apocalypse. And it was going to be written simultaneously by 3 writers. Now, if you're sitting there and you didn't live this, you're just kind of hearing about it through me, and you're scratching your head and you're like, that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Let me assure you that you weren't alone, or that you aren't alone. There was a tremendous amount of confusion this time, uh, and I can at least speak personally in that I was not really sure what Marvel was doing, and what was going to happen with the X-Men. So pull back from like a 100-mile up in the sky bird's eye view, this was exciting because Uncanny X-Men was coming back and they were invoking kind of the mystique of the Age of Apocalypse. So with those details, how could you not be excited? How could you not be excited for that? But there were so many questions and so much confusion. Um, Uncanny X-Men, what was gonna happen to it after the first 10 issues? Um, how are these 3 writers going to collaborate as they wrote this story? Did they each write pages in each issue? Did they take turns alternating who wrote an issue? Um, would they stay on it after the first 10? Would Uncanny X-Men tie into this Age of X-Men, or would it continue to be its own storyline? Would it just end? Would it end after the first 10 issues? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 concurrent series, all with different teams, creative teams, and different mutant teams that would be telling the story of Age of X-Men. And it was very unclear if you could just read one, you had to read all of them, how they would play off of each other, and really it was not marketed or very clear like what each book would tell a story of. Like I had no idea what these books were about. So that was kind of the environment that Uncanny X-Men, which came out November 14th, issue number 1 did, kind of stepped on stage during. Very uncertain, not really sure what the future held. Um, but all the same, if you wanted to find out, it seemed like Marvel was asking to make a huge commitment in terms of time and money, because there were just a ton of tie-in books and just a ton of X-Men to read. And fortunately for Marvel, I was going to buy every single one of them. So if this video was a little esoteric, a little abstract, and not at all what you were thinking, I do apologize. I thought it was probably important to just make a relatively shorter video setting up just kind of my mind state, my mental state, and how I was feeling about this event before I jumped into it. And really just the state of the X-Men at large before I really dived into reviewing this event. To kind of set up what I'm going to be looking to do, I'll have one video reviewing each of the main series for Age of X-Men. I'm going to also chop Uncanny X-Men into two videos. One will review the first 10 issues, and then one will review the last 10 issues. And it's going to be a good time. The rest of these videos will just be honest to goodness review videos where I share my opinions, my thoughts on how the stories were, art, all that good stuff. And yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Lots of laughs, probably a lot of tears. If you are down for the journey, I invite you to come along. We are going to dive into the Age of X-Men together. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.